And a very good afternoon. It's Monday, the start of a new week. Yes, we are. Everything we need to know, we're going to hear about this week. Now that the draft is over, we can start paying more attention to the sports at hand, especially baseball, which is really going along real well. National Hockey League getting ready for their playoffs real soon, as well as the NBA. So we kind of can stay away from them for a few more days until the playoffs begin, because that's when it really gets serious as far as the NBA is concerned. So I'm Chris Pardo. You're in the Sports Wagering Zone. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. We're also coming to you on podcasting platforms as well. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Apple, and we said Apple already, okay? And we're also on Amazon Music as well, and many more. But I could spend the whole half hour going over each and every platform that we're on, and we're on almost every major platform, in addition to, of course, on Blackjack TV in the East Coast. So anyway, thank you very much for listening. We have a lot on the agenda today. Like I said, now that the draft is over and everybody's giving their analysis as to who did better, who did worse, or whatever. And so we can concentrate more on the issues at hand, primarily baseball, because baseball is really in the thick of the season right now. And it's a good idea to kind of take a look and see what's going on as far as the trends are concerned, kind of give you an idea as to which direction some of those trends are going. Of course, as always, we're going to tell you about what happened yesterday. And of course, that's going to be right at the top of the list. So, yesterday we had some action in Major League Baseball, the NBA, and the National Hockey League. So, let's kind of review them, kind of give you an idea and let you know what the favorites did, what the underdogs did, and the percentages, and, depending on where they're at right now. So, in the National Hockey League, only one game yesterday. And of course, like we said, all season long, the favorites have been dominating in the National Hockey League. And sure enough, one game yesterday, the favorites won that game. The Lightning were a minus 320 on the money line. They won 2-1 against the Red Wings. And it's, like I said, the only game on the schedule. Because there was one game, there was only one under, and it went up that way as well. And the unders increased their lead to 386 to 365, which is at 51.3% so far this season. Meanwhile, the first period unders also went 1-0 yesterday. The increase brought them up to 51.1%. So one game of the National Hockey League, favorites have been dominating all season long. Had you started betting hockey, if you're into hockey, I know it's a boutique sport. There aren't that many people that actually participate in it, although that's an old tale, okay? That's an old wives' tale, and it was pretty true. But right now that you have 27 states and more states waiting to come in to legalize betting, you're starting to get more states that have more hockey fans within them. So you're going to start seeing more and more hockey being bet as far as that's concerned. So that's the story with hockey. Meanwhile, in the NBA, the favorites, they went 6-2 straight up, but they only went 4-4 against the spread. Have four upsets up there. You had the Kings, 7-point dogs against the Mavericks. The Raptors, a 10-point dog against the Lakers. And the Spurs, a 10-point dog against the 76ers. And the Thunder, 15.5 points against the Suns. Both of those teams covered, even though they did lose their games. Now, the favorites lead in the NBA right now, 50.9. So almost say 51%. And of course, the overs went 6-2 yesterday, and the overs are at 50.5%. So the NBA had 8 games yesterday, 4-4 straight up, but 6-2 against the spread. You had 4 big upsets yesterday in the NBA. And in Major League Baseball, the favorites went down. They went 8-7. That upsets by the Blue Jays at plus 114. The Rays 115 on the plus side. The Indians plus 146. The Rangers plus 108. The Mariners at plus 140. The Giants at plus 162. And the Mets at plus 110. Of course, the favorites, they still lead right now, 218 to 193. And the overs yesterday went 8-7 after they went 13-2 on Saturday. If you remember, 8-7, 13-2. But the unders still lead in spite of that, 51.5 so far this season. So that's the roundup yesterday in Major League Baseball, in the NBA, and of course the National Hockey League. So those are the stories as far as how the favorites fared against the underdogs in those situations. And of course, now it's time, as normal, we're going to take our first break of the day. And when we do come back, once again, as always, we're going to look at 3 games that are getting a lot of action early on in the day. We're going to be looking at the Philadelphia Phillies. We're going to be looking at the Dodgers against the Cubs. And, of course, we're going to be looking at the Blue Jays against the Oakland A's. Those are the 3 games we're going to take a closer look at, kind of see in which direction the lines are going, and, of course, in which direction the pros are going as well. We'll also give you an update as to how that little method that we've been using for making our selections, our recommendations, whatever you want to call them, to you throughout the season, give you an idea as to how well or how bad they're doing. Once again, we're not saying that these are the games that you should play. You should take a look at them. If you want to play them, by all means do so. If you don't, perhaps you might want to put it in with whatever system you've got. You may have a system you're very happy with. You're doing very well. You're doing okay. But again, like I always say, sometimes you come across that situation where you're not sure which team you want to bet on. And perhaps, by knowing in which direction the pros are going, you may either want to go with them or you may want to go against them. So that's why we give you that information as well. You can use it as it is, or you can implement it in whatever system you have, or you can just ignore it totally. That's totally up to you. We're here to try to make a better handicapper out of you. And if using some of this information does that, then we've accomplished our job. So let's take our first break. And as usual, as we say, we take 3 breaks within the show. Each one is of about a 1-minute duration. So if that's the case, we will be back right after this. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasts such as Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, you name it, we're on most of them. So welcome to the show. Thank you very much for listening. Before we get to the 3 games we were talking about as far as where the money line is going and which direction the pros are going, I want to talk a little bit about the NBA because we're getting some back talk on it, some backlash, if you want to call it, why we don't talk about NBA games. Well, because, betting on the NBA on a daily basis right now is really very difficult. First of all, you have a very super volatile market, and that's due because it's has an unpredictable nature to these late breaking injuries in basketball, especially with key players. They're resting at times. At the last minute, you find out they're not going to be playing that game. Okay. So what happens is that really blows up the spread totally, no doubt about it. So why even tinker with it? So you take that, you combine it with the fact that the teams are now, some of them, hate to use that word, but they are. Some of them are quietly tanking because they want to get a higher draft, same thing as they do in the NFL, and it makes handicapping these games almost impossible. It's so hard. So why even talk about it? So with a lot of nightly spreads being very erratic and very tough to handicap, as bettors, you might rather turn to totals right now, specifically high total overs. So far this season, the overs are at 50.2%. Now, due to paying the juice that you have to pay on them, you'd be down about 21 units of playing the overs. You'd still be down, okay? The key is isolating the higher total overs. When the total is 229.5 or less, the over is 59.5%. But when the total is 230 or more, the over is 51.8%. If the total is 235 or higher, the over is at 59.1%. So 235 or higher on the over is really the way to go. And also, if the total is 240 or over, it's almost at 58%. Keeping in mind always 52.3% is your break-even point. That's why if you're winning 50% of the time, you're still behind because you got the VIG that you're paying, okay? Same thing with 49.5%, and even 51.8%. But if you go to those totals at 235 or higher, you're at 59%. And at 240 or higher, you're at 58%. So those are the ones you want to really take a look at. Now, if the total is 230 or more, and it's a non-division game, the over is 54%, just a little over what you need to make a profit. Non-conference overs of 230 or more are at almost 60%, 59.5%. So looking at it this way, if you're looking at a non-conference game and it's looking at the overs and it's 230 or more, you got almost a 60% chance of having a winner in that situation. Now, the lack of familiarity really benefits the offense because the defense has a tougher time matching up defending against an opponent that they aren't used to playing. That's why non-conference games are that way, because they don't play that often. They don't get to see each other that often, okay? Now, if both teams are tired, playing on a back-to-back or with only 2 days off, the over's at 55%. So when you're betting it over, also look for the short spreads of 5 or less. The shorter the spread benefits the overs, because this means it looks like it's going to be a closer back and forth game, and you might even get overtime, which is really going to be to your benefit, okay? Also, isolate when two of the worst defensive teams as far as efficiency is concerned go head-to-head. Bad defense is great for an over, okay? So the moral of the story we talked about, when you see a high total, don't automatically assume that it's so high that it has to go under, because high total overs have actually done quite well this season, especially if you can add in the non-conference matchups, the short spreads, the guys that are playing back-to-back or with 2 days ago when they played a game, and You have some bad defensive teams as well. So that's the story with the NBA. That's why we don't go into talking about the games. We're going to start talking about maybe going on the overs. You don't need us for that. Just take a look at the line in your particular area. Check what the overs and unders are. And if you see them going over 230, over 240, that's the way to play them. So that's the kind of little insight into that situation. So kind of took up enough time telling you about that, but it's important because so far it's very, very difficult, like I said, betting the NBA games. Now, once we get into the playoffs, that's going to be a totally different story. Okay. These guys are going to be in there to play to win. They're going to be ready to play. The only people that may not play is someone who gets injured, which you really have nothing to do about, okay, as long as you hear about it early enough, or if someone has a COVID situation, and of course you're going to hear about that before the game as well. So once the playoffs get in, we'll start paying closer attention. The pros will be looking at them a little closer. We'll get a closer look at the line movements on those games. We'll let you know how they go as well. So let's take that second break. And when we come back, I promise we will be looking at the three games that we've been talking about that we're going to talk about later on today. The Milwaukee Brewers against the Philadelphia Phillies. That's around 7 o'clock. The Dodgers against the Cubs, and the Toronto Blue Jays against the Oakland Athletics. Those are the three games that are on tap for today. So if you were planning on betting any of those three games even before we mention them, stand by, listen to what we have to say. It may help you in making your decision. So let's take that break. And of course, as always, we will be back in about a minute to maybe a minute and a half. And welcome back. Welcome back to the Sports Wagering Zone. We're coming to you live from Charlotte, North Carolina on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as podcasting on most of your major podcast platforms, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music also. So anyway, those are the places where you can find us, not only there, but most of your major platforms as well. So let's take a look at three games that are starting to get some notable action from the pros and the money line and the line movements of these games. The first game we're looking at is about 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, of course. The Milwaukee Brewers, 17-11, playing the Philadelphia Phillies, 13-15. Now, these are National League non-divisional teams, and as you can tell from their records, they're trending in really opposite directions. 17-11, 13-15. The Brewers, they just took 3 of 4 at home against the Dodgers, the powerful Dodgers that everybody was picking to be at the top of the list. Meanwhile, the Phillies just dropped 2 of their 3 games at home against the divisional rival Mets. Now, in tonight's series opener, Milwaukee starts their right-hander, Adrian Hauser. He's 2-2 with a 3.65 ERA. And the Phillies, they come back with Vince Velasquez, who has no record so far, with a 6.57 ERA. Now, as we look at the line in this game, it opened with the Phillies listed as a slight minus 110 home favorite, and the Brewers as a plus 100 as a dog. Now, the public kind of sees this as a no-brainer to back Milwaukee because, hey, they have the superior record. There's no doubt about it. They played better as of late as well. But you know what? Despite all these things and all this action coming in on Milwaukee, we've seen the Phillies become more and more of a favorite. It actually has now flipped over, and Philadelphia is a minus 110 to a minus 115, depending on which part of the country you're in, what particular sports book you're dealing with. What this means is that the pros are buying low on Philadelphia playing at home. So the Phillies will lean on their bats in this one. Philadelphia is hitting 232, which ranks them 17th in Major League Baseball. The Brewers, they're hitting 217, which ranks them 27th. So keep an eye on the weather for this one because we could be looking at low 70s, 10-mile-per-hour winds blowing out to dead center. The total is 9. Once again, once you have the wind blowing from home plate out to the outfield, the chances of the overs are very, very good. And so far, the total on this game is 9. So in this first game that we're talking about between Milwaukee Brewers and the Philadelphia Phillies, the pros are on the Philadelphia Phillies, who started out as an underdog, now becoming the favorite because of the money that they are betting on this game. Meanwhile, around 7:30, 7:40 Eastern Time, Los Angeles Dodgers, 17-12, playing against the Chicago Cubs, 12-16. Now, both these franchises, who have been around for a long time, almost back to the beginning, have struggled lately. They're going an identical 3-7 over their last 10 games. Now, the Dodgers, they just dropped 3 or 4 against the Brewers, while the Cubs lost 2 or 3 against the Reds. So tonight's series opener, you have Los Angeles going with their ace Walker Buehler. He's 1-0 so far this season with a 3.16 ERA. The Cubs come back with their righty Kyle Hendricks. He's 1-3, just the opposite, 7.54 as an ERA. Now, as we look at the line in this game, open with the Dodgers, minus 170 road favorites. That's one thing we've seen almost all season long. The Dodgers opening up very, very high on the money line. Obviously, they have the talent. The Cubs, they're a plus 155 as a home dog. That's how they open. The wise guys have rushed to the window. The chalk Dodgers, that's who they like in this game. And once they came in, that minus 170 jumped up to a minus 200 on the money line. Now, these teams are coming off a win, and teams that come off a win receiving 15 cents of steam or more in their favor are at 58% this season. Want to repeat that. A team coming off a win that's getting 15 cents or more of steam. In this case, it's more than that. It's 20, okay, in their favor, 58% so far this season. The Dodgers are 17-11 as a favorite this year. The Cubs, well, they're 6-9 as a dog. The Dodgers are 11-7 against righties. The Cubs are 6-15 against righties. Los Angeles is plus 45 in run differential. That happens to be the best run differential in the National League. Meanwhile, the Chicago Cubs are at minus 14. Now you're going to have to lay some heavy wood on this game. It's up to minus 200 on the money line. And again, check with your local sports books because, depending on which part of the country, and that might be varied a little bit, but it's still going to be very, very high. So you really have to lay some wood if you like the Dodgers in this particular game. On the other hand, at 9:40 p.m., you have the Toronto Blue Jays and the Oakland A's. Jays are 14-12. Oakland 17-12. The Blue Jays have quietly been one of the hottest teams in baseball. It's amazing because they're not actually playing in Toronto. Okay, they're playing in Florida because of COVID, okay? You can't go back and forth between countries because there's a 14-day waiting period. Well, you can't have teams sit around for 14 days waiting to play. So in the meantime, the Blue Jays are in Florida, and that's where they've been playing. Who knows? Maybe after the season's over, they may wind up staying down there. Meanwhile, the Athletics have struggled a bit since their 13-game winning streak ended. They went 3-5 over their last 8 games. So in tonight's game, which is the opener of the series, the Jays start their lefty, Steven Matz. He's 4-1 so far this season with a 4.0 ERA. And the Athletics, they come back with their righty, Frankie Montas. He's 2-2 this season, a 6.2 ERA. Now, as we look at the line, it opened as a virtual pick'em so far. Both sides listed as a minus 105 on the money line. So the public is all over those red-hot Blue Jays. But in spite of that, we've seen this line move toward the Athletics, minus 105 down to minus 120. What this means is that the pros have used the reverse line movement strategy on Oakland. The pros are fading the trendy dog. The trendy dog, of course, the Toronto Blue Jays. The home teams in non-division games with 10 cents or more steam. Here you went from 105 to 120. That's 15 cents of steam, and it's in their direction are 39-25 this season, which is 61% so far, well over the 52% you need to break even or stay ahead. Now, the A's have done well against lefties this season. They're 7-3 when they play against the lefties. So in this particular game, the Blue Jays against the Oakland A's, the pros are on the Oakland A's. So let's again, just to recap the 3 games we talked about so far. We got Milwaukee against the Phillies in this particular game. We've seen the Phillies as the choice. They flipped it around between the Dodgers and the Cubs. The pros like the Dodgers, but again, you're going to have to lay some heavy wood if you want to play this particular game, although they are ahead in that situation, okay? But even though it is ahead, because you're laying so much wood, even though the record looks like it's on the plus side, it's probably on the minus side if you look at the numbers as far as money is concerned. Because when you're laying this kind of wood and you lose one of the games, you got quite a few games to make up before you finally get back to even. And the final game, you have the Toronto Blue Jays against the Oakland Athletics. And in that particular game, the pros are on Oakland as well. So that's the story on the 3 games in Major League Baseball. We're going to take our final break. And, of course, when we come back, we're going to take a look and see some trends. You have to be aware of some trends that have been happening lately. We want to bring them to your attention, let you know what's going on with them, some more data, some more information to try to make a better handicapper out of you. Try to put you into that plus column, bring you over that 52.3, 52.4% as far as that number is concerned. But keep in mind, in baseball, if you're betting the dogs, you're going to be on the plus side most of the time as far as the money line is concerned. So you may get, say, a plus 150 money line, okay, and win that game and maybe win another one at 50. So Now that you can lose a game without losing any money as well because you've already made it up on the other end. That's the positive aspect of betting on baseball. And you can be somewhere in the 49 to 50%, even lower, even 45. I've seen times where you could be at 45, 46%, still be in the profit column if you bet on the dogs and you get all that extra money line cover for you. Anyway, let's take that final break. And as a reminder, we will be back into the sports wagering zone in 60 seconds. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Charlotte on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. Before we get into the little trend information that we have for you, I forgot to give you an update as to how this little system, method, whatever you want to call it, following the pros and going in that direction is doing so far this season. Well, yesterday we had 3 plays. We had the Washington Nationals. That was a win. We had the Steelers against the Cardinals. We had the Cardinals in that game. That was a win. And of course, we had the Cubs in the final game, and that was the losers. So we had 2 winners and 1 loser. The day before, we had 2 losers and 1 winner. So far this season, however, we've had 85 plays. Out of those 85 plays, 48 came in as winners, 36 came in as losers. That puts you at 56.4%. That's not a bad idea. Now, I'm not saying it's the end all. The season isn't over yet. Anything can come up. Anything can happen. But right now, and since the beginning of the season, this little thing has been working fairly well. Now, I want to talk about trends, especially being aware of trends, because once you know about them, sometimes you want to stay with them a while. The key is to getting in early enough and getting out when it's time to get out. That's the whole thing. So just looking at certain things, I kind of thought to myself the other day, let's see what we've learned so far in this baseball season that we've been in so far. Okay. Now, very simply, it was this: the underdogs, they went 10-6 straight up last Tuesday with 1 game. The A's and the Diamondbacks closed as a pick'em. That was followed by the underdogs going 11-3 straight up on Wednesday for a 2-day run of 21 wins and 9 losses. That's 70%. Okay. Now, even more impressively, that made favorites and dogs 84-84 straight up so far on the season, and 6 games were closing as a pick'em. I always try to remind you guys out there that they might be slightly different, especially in the against the spread betting results, because wherever you are, okay, mine are computed on Vegas odds. Vegas books on the situation. Their Circa, their South Point, Westgate, BetMGM, Wynn, William Hill, Station Casinos, Golden Nugget, Treasure Island, all those places, we get the information from them, and those are the numbers that we use. So regardless, it's amazing that the dogs were winning half the games a few weeks into the season. It usually takes a little longer. And of course, it didn't end even there, because after the favorites went 6-4 on Thursday, the favorites and the dogs split 6-6 on Friday. The favorites went 9-6 on Sunday to take a 105-100 lead. And then the underdogs went 9-5 on Sunday, and then 5-2 on Monday, with the only two winning chalks being the Cardinals at a -108 on the money line, the Nationals and the Giants as -109s, and the Phillies, as well as both, were very early pick'ems, okay? They took the season lead 114-112 with 9 picks. Now, again, you might see slightly different figures wherever you are, but if you're listening to what we have to say, my dog or pass philosophy, you're loving all those parity, and you're probably ahead on the baseball season so far if you've been listening to the show and paying attention and doing some of the things we've talked about. Now, if you're playing chalk, you're only ahead if you're hitting at a really high percentage rate. So this seems like a good time to offer a primer for you guys out there so you can read between the lines of those daily betting recaps, okay? First of all, I've talked for years while wearing my situation together here that certain things have to happen, okay? Since the public still tends to bet on favorites and overs, while the books usually need the dogs and the unders to go ahead. Also, in addition to that, we're also going to be listening to other situations as well. I know as a listener, you love to see which trends are hot and which are not, okay? And as another situation, another reason is to show the trends is that the books haven't adjusted enough to what's been going on so far, so we can hopefully take advantage before they finally see what's going on and make their adjustments. They can also help avoiding plays where they're backing a strong trend. So in that situation, you want to get in early enough when things are happening before the sports books kind of realize, wait a minute, it's kind of going in that direction. Let's adjust these numbers. However, there's always a but. It always comes in. I always try to warn you guys that we need to be cautious when you're following these trends, because the books are bound to adjust. And nearly every season, or even the postseason, the trends will regress to the mean, okay? And they'll end up somewhere around 500%, okay? Now, for instance, while we're on baseball, the unders were 122 and 106. That's 53.5% through last Monday. Major League Baseball went with a dead end ball this season, supposedly, and it's resulted in slightly more unders. But you'd be up very little if you blindly bet every one. You just can't you can't bet on every one. With the weather warming up, we'll probably see that they kind of move closer to that 50-50 through the rest of the spring and coming through the summer. Although we also expect the odds makers to start shading the totals to a higher number. So you might be paying a little extra if you're jumping on the overs. Now, we've already seen this evening out of the trends in the NBA and the NHL. We talked about that before. We stopped talking or paying attention to these situations and these results in sports as favorites have pulled away. Okay, the NBA favorites, they're still leading 425-414. 50.7% against the spread. 11 games were pick'ems. Now, the totals wagering is also pretty much a coin flip in these two sports, with the NBA overs only leading by a small percentage, 50.4. In the National Hockey League, the unders are still leading at 51.6%. So Well, I'll continue to bet Major League Baseball, and I'll be betting on the dogs and talking about betting on the dogs. I know they're not going to be above 500 for the entire season because, once again, the odds makers are surely, no doubt about it, they're going to adjust the lines and take away some of that value that we have in there right now. But you know what? As long as we're getting plus money, we don't have to hit 50% to make money. The key is always to be selective and shop for the best numbers. That's always what we talk about. That's why you have to deal with more than one sports book. So this way, you know you're getting the best possible number. And you always know a half a point here or there can take you in one direction or another. So we'll keep an eye on these trends. Right now, the trends seen in baseball seem to be favoring the underdogs, doing very, very well. But again, it'll even out. You know, it just kind of works out that way. But even at 50%, if it finally gets down to that point, it's still going to be a profit situation if you're betting on the dogs because they have that plus money factor coming into play. And as long as they win 50% of the games, that's all you need to know. Anyway, taking a look once again, now that we're still talking about baseball, Milwaukee Brewers against the Philadelphia Phillies. The game at 7 o'clock this evening. The pros are on the Phillies. They've become the favorite. They were the dog, started becoming the favorite at 110, 115 at some of the houses as well. The Dodgers against the Chicago Cubs. The pros are on the Dodgers. And in that one, you're going to have to lay some very heavy wood if you like the Dodgers in that game. Meanwhile, the Toronto Blue Jays play the Oakland Athletics. And of course, Oakland is the selection in that particular game. So that's the story for today. It's Monday. It's the beginning of the week. We covered some trends that have been going on. We gave you the 3 games for tonight. And if you're going to be betting any of those games, whether it's those games or maybe some basketball, if you want to take that shot, or hockey or whatever it is, I definitely want you to win. I need you to win. That's very, very important, and I hope you do. So have a very pleasant Monday, and also have a very profitable Monday as well. That's even better. So until tomorrow at 12 noon, we're here every day, Monday through Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time at noon. So until tomorrow, have a very pleasant and profitable day, and we'll be back again on the I-95 Sports Network at 12 noon. Goodbye, everybody.